Welcome to the Armed and Ready podcast. I am your host, Jason Wood, the VA loan guy. We have a really exciting episode lined up for you, so come check it out. I have a super exciting guest today, college classmate of mine and a veteran, Joey Gilbert. Joey, welcome to the show, man.
Hey man, thanks for having me. Thanks for connecting with me. Honored to be here. It's always fun to reconnect with folks that I haven't seen in, I don't know, almost 2 decades.
Yeah.
Good to see you, brother.
Yeah, good to see you too, man. Well, thanks for being on with us. So for the audience, Joey and I know each other from college. So we both went to the University of Nevada, Reno. Since then, both have gone on our ways on our careers, and we both have some common themes with our military service and the National Guard in Nevada. So Joey, let's just hear a little bit about your story. So we went to college together. We were fraternity guys, not in the same fraternity, but I won't hold that against you. But you were a boxer. I know in school you were a boxer. You did some professional boxing, military thing, attorney. So just give us a little insight as to, what was kind of the decision for you to raise your right hand and join the military?
Well, I was very fortunate boxing in Nevada. I boxed for the University of Nevada. And at the time, some folks might remember Mills Lane, and he's the little ref that they used to use on Celebrity Deathmatch. And just to really give people some highlight, he was the referee when Mike Tyson bit Evander Holyfield's ear. A little bald referee from Reno, had that real high pitched voice, and just was a good friend of mine. Well, he was in the Marine Corps and he was a boxer. And so he used to come in and practice reffing. A lot of the refs used to come in, and he'd tell me every time he's in there, "You need to join the military." And I'd be like, "Mills, I don't want to join the military." And he'd say, "Well, you got to be in the military. It's good for you." And I'd be like, "I don't want to join the military." So he kept ragging on me. And then he would say, like, "Listen, here's an opportunity to serve your country. Here's an opportunity, they can help you with school." I did it with law school. So I actually looked into the program and, looked at it from like, hey, this would be really cool, not just to do it, but for later in life to, I didn't know what I would want to do at the time. There was times I wanted to be a fighter pilot, I wanted to do intel, and then eventually I wanted to be a JAG officer. So that's how I ended up in law school. Well, he also, by that same token, encouraged me to go to law school. So I actually enlisted in the Air National Guard because Nevada had just opened up a law school down in Vegas. So the whole plan was to get into, to UNLV law school, go into the National Guard and have the Air Guard help me with that. And so, what actually took place was I went through basic, I went through tech school, and I ended up, even though I was waitlisted at Nevada, I didn't get into the law school. And so I had to shift gears and ended up going to law school in San Diego. So that had me, a lot of people wonders like, well, dude, whatever happened to you? They weren't flying people back up on the C-130s at that time. So they made me drive to March Air Force Base in Southern California and go drill there, which was kind of ridiculous, but was what it was. You had to do. And then I'd come home every so often whenever we had to do, our PT or whatever qualification stuff we had to do in Nevada. I did that. And then after about 6 months, they put me on IRR, Individual Ready Reserve. And I just sat in that. And then, 9/11 happened. Things got a little interesting. So I actually went and met with the Marine Corps and down in San Diego, it was Marine or Navy, and was slotted to take a JAG slot. If they called me, I wasn't going over enlisted as Air Trans. I was going to take a slot in JAG, got all that paperwork filled out and just kind of sat there. But I was lucky because I was pursuing a degree of higher education with law school. They just left me in that status where I had to muster once a year and, keep my information updated. And I actually sat on IRR till 2007. So I didn't really do a whole lot outside of go through training and then be ready. But what I really took that was really fun is when I was a fighter, you brought that up. I went through law school, got out of law school, went to Las Vegas, and I ended up, as a professional boxer, but I ended up on Sylvester Stallone's show, The Contender. And that show was amazing.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Exposure like crazy. And Sly had a nutritional company called Instone at the time. And I actually, was the main spokesperson for it. And I went 3 USO tours. He let me take all Instone related products. So I went to Afghanistan and Iraq 3 times for almost 2 to 3 weeks at a time, just to go meet with all our American men and servicemen and women, which was just one of the coolest things ever.
Yeah,
and
that's
got
awesome.
to, pimp out Stallone stuff and bring all the gear. And, nothing made guys on deployment more excited than like testosterone muscle building products from Stallone. You know, the Contender had just shown on Armed Forces Network, so we got to watch that a bunch of times. This was 2006 and 7. And then after I finished, you know, my little run, I boxed, you know, professionally up till 2011. I ended up retiring 21-3, 17 knockouts. I had the WBO, NABO belt, and the WBC, USNBC belt. Was ranked number 3 in the world by the WBO and number 7 in the world by the WBC, which is, you know, most guys never get ranked in one sanctioning body, let alone 2. So it was really cool to have that exposure from Stallone, from that show, and then to just, you know, be successful as a fighter. And then I ended up opening up a law firm in Reno, 2009, and then really started, you know, when I retired from boxing in 2011, it really just kind of exploded. And I've been doing real estate, you know, law here. I've got my license in real estate, and, you know, got some team stuff going there. I really don't focus on that as much. It kind of does itself. And then I do my law firm, and I got pretty heavily involved in the cannabis side of things. I actually did so because of veterans. I ended up, my father has a nonprofit. I should bring up real quick. My dad was retired lieutenant colonel through the Marine Corps, but attached to the Navy. And you know how these guys are. If you say Navy and he's Marine, he gets all bent out of shape. So I have to say, you know, he's in the Marine Corps, but he was a trauma surgeon, deployed 3 times. And when he came back, you know, we were noticing a huge issue with just the PTSD. And with the medications, the VA was handing out like Tic Tacs, man, bottles of freaking, you know, opioids that just were nothing. And so I actually got with a group of vets, and we saw how, you know, beneficial cannabis was for a lot of these guys. And that's actually what got me into it. And I lobbied to get the Veterans Court here in Nevada, you know, to get it as an approved treatment, you know, and at least to back guys off a little bit. And we're still working on that. But my dad made me CEO of his nonprofit, Nevada Veterans for Veterans. And when your dad's a lieutenant colonel, you really don't get to tell him no. So I remember saying, like, Dad, I don't have time. He was like, you know, you're the guy. So I did that for about 3 years. So we've done about 70 plus pro bono cases for vets, anything from quashing warrants, you know, speeding tickets, domestic stuff, you know, DUI, a lot of stuff where guys were self-medicating. And that's kind of what got me into the cannabis thing, is I found out so many guys were coming back and just trying to find a way to feel normal again, or a way to, you know, sleep through the night, or, you know, anything, go to the grocery store and not feel weird. So that gave me a whole different insight into things. And the law firm exploded. And then now here we are in Reno. God, man, I never thought I would be, as you said, running for governor. But what happened was things are going great. We got one of the greatest economies rocking in the world, and I'll pull no punches. I'm a huge supporter of our president, Donald Trump. I loved what he was doing. I loved things were moving in the right direction. I believe in his America First policies. I believed in, just letting people, work hard, get out of their way, and not so much government, in our pocketbook, in our schools, in our healthcare, like we've seen. And so I was a huge supporter of President Trump, was very sure we were coasting through to a big victory. And again, like I said, I pull no punches. He won that election hands down, and they stole it from him. And when I say they, it's not like the Democrats are evil geniuses. Everybody kind of worked. You got your establishment Republicans, your rhinos, and it was kind of a means to an end. So people are kind of regretting it now. I mean, people definitely wish they had some mean tweets, and would probably be rather having that. You've seen what happened at our southern border with Afghanistan, and now with military readiness with the jab. So I took a position, man, in early March 2020, when this thing rolled out. The old man, when I talk about my dad, like, people need to understand that I have so much respect for him. Like I said, he re-enlisted. My mom doesn't know this, so if she ever sees this podcast, it probably will cause some problems. But after 9/11, he re-upped, and he told her that he got called. But he re-upped and went over there. Like I said, 3 combat deployments as a surgeon. He was part of the first ever shock trauma platoons they put together, which they actually had doctors and corpsmen inserted with forward operating forces. Saved a lot of lives by doing that. And so my degree of respect for my father is just so high. And so he caught COVID in early 2020 as a state doctor, in gloves, in a face shield, in a gown, in a mask. And he came home and threw that stuff off after he caught it. And he said, "This is all a bunch of nonsense." And I really quickly, man, I went on the internet and I typed in coronavirus treatment South Korea, because you look at where China and South Korea are. Up popped this little thing said azithromycin, doxycycline, zinc sulfate, and hydroxychloroquine. I called the old man up. I said, hey, Pops, we got to get this stuff. This thing's coming from overseas. And he was like, that's a serious medication, you know. And I said, Dad, the hell it is. Look right here. It says on the CD website, it says safe for women and children for up to 5 years. It says safe for pregnant women. Dad, that's not even on Tylenol. And my father's very reserved. He calls me back. He goes, listen, I'll look into it. I'll call you back. Calls me back the next day and he goes, hey, son, that is a very safe medication. We actually use it for lupus and rheumatoid arthritis. And then he goes, and you know what? I actually took it. And I cut him off. I said, when you got deployed to Africa, dude, because it was used as totally. So he starts laughing. And then the governor of Nevada banned it a lot, like you saw some of these blue states do. So long and short of it is I got in the fight. A bunch of doctors, not a bunch, NOMA, the Nevada Osteopathic Medical Association, hired me, representing 300 doctors. I fight the governor. I make sure his emergency regulation can't be extended past July 23rd, 2020. And then hydroxy becomes available in the state since then. The docs that I've worked with, thousands of lives have been saved, but there's so much more we could have done. And so I tell you this because that was my line in the sand. When I saw that, first of all, pharmacy boards and governors aren't allowed to practice medicine. And when I saw them stepping up and tying doctors' hands, like, look, it's your choice. You want to take some, we're in a right to try a state. It's an FDA approved drug. You should be able to try it. So that for me is what really gave me a look. I kind of said, like, wait, there's something wrong with this picture. When would you ever see something like this? And then I'll say the two last straws where they sent the kids home from school and they shut their sports down. And I'm sitting there looking at the same information everybody else is looking at. It says, per the CDC, 0% chance of death for kids. So I'm looking at this going, okay, so like, why are our schools closed? Why are the kids home? And still to this day in Nevada, 0 through 19, we've had 0 deaths for a kid 0 through 19. In Nevada, they took it a step further. We're the only state in the union, even Hawaii got basketball. So as a former student athlete, like if I didn't have boxing, Jason, you know this, I would have never achieved half the stuff I achieved. Like boxing did so much for me. Yeah. So I'm looking at this, like there are kids that needed that sophomore, junior, senior year of ball or hooping or whatever to get to that next level. It didn't make sense to me. So I started fighting to get the schools open. But the biggest thing, the last one was the churches. The governor closed the churches, but we had the casinos open, the dispensaries open, the liquor stores open. They even opened the strip clubs. And that was like it for me. I was like, okay, this is obviously not science. So I filed a lawsuit in Vegas. I lost and I appealed it to the Ninth Circuit. And believe it or not, 10 days before Christmas in 2020, we beat the governor and opened all churches. And that's when I started getting calls from people all over the state. They're like, you got to run for governor. I said, I'm not running for governor. I want nothing to do with this. This is miserable. All these people are terrible. These politicians are the worst to deal with. And I don't know if you've ever had any of these experiences, but you sit down with these people and they aren't the sharpest tools in the shed. We literally have people with billion-dollar budgets, multiple billion-dollar budgets. I wouldn't trust these guys to run a lemonade stand. I really wouldn't. Yeah. So I kind of looked at it from the outside and I went, this is insane. Like these are the people in charge of this. I mean, you look at anything the government's run, it's a disaster, whether it's the postal service, whether it's medical care. So now they're supposed to be the ones quarterbacking this coronavirus response. It was a disaster. Meanwhile, states like Florida, where DeSantis took charge, an amazing, brilliant guy, Christie Noem, Abbott. So you get to know these guys. And I just felt like, we need a more, localized approach to this. Some governor in Vegas shouldn't be quarterbacking how Elko County responds, or Lander County, or Washoe County, or White Pine County. And so that took me down a road of just looking at looking at the 10th Amendment, looking at like how counties do have more control. And then I actually got a phone call from someone in Placer County, California. And they said, hey, that counties can actually course correct at the local level by using this. And, they gave me some information. I said, no, I didn't know that. Let me see what you're talking about. And actually, when Trump tried to withhold when Trump tried to withhold funds from sanctuary cities, he got slapped with some lawsuits. And the lawsuit said you cannot attach special conditions to a federal funding source that came with no said such conditions. So the governor had no right to attach anything. And even though he tried to. So I got a bunch of counties, 8 of them, they filed these emergency resolutions and they opened up, no restrictions, no occupancy limits, no masks. And the governor sent them some mean letters but he got some, some colorful language back from these guys. I'd use my middle finger if we weren't on a podcast, but he got the bird from some of these, rural counties, and they never touched him. These guys have been open, restriction, occupancy, mask free since like October 2020, and it's really awesome. Some of them waited a little longer, went into January, February, March, but I saw that happen. And then I really started working hard. I got to see 3 counties become constitutional counties. We brought in Sheriff Mack. And what does that mean? People say, Joey, what's a constitutional county? It means we follow the Bill of Rights and we follow the Constitution, which carved out our founding fathers were very smart. And they said that there's the federal government, there's the state, and then there's the counties. And the counties actually have the control at the local level. And so a bunch of sheriffs got together, again, gave the governor the middle finger. Their county boards voted to open. And that's kind of what got me slid into looking at governor. And it really was, I looked at who was going to run and I said, we're here because of these jackwagons. There's just no way I'm going to sit back. I've just been through a 1.5 years of total hell. All this time, my daughter homeschools. So I had 15 of these little suckers in my backyard on the trampoline, eating me out of house and home. I'm going to freaking Costco twice a week. I didn't see one of these kids sick. I might have seen a stuffy nose, and I was like, get outside, go play, go get each other sick. Because if you remember, when we were little, you get sick, you didn't get to sick. My father would say, okay, so Marine Corps dad, son, you're either so sick that you need to stay home and stay in bed, or you're not that sick that you can get stuff around the house done. So we went to school sick.
Yeah.
That was never a case. You never saw kids home in a mask because of the flu. And then last thing I'll say, Jason, this is the funniest part. 3 years ago, if you would have been one of these, snowflake moms, I guess I could call it, and you tried to put your kid in a mask, the only kid in school in a mask during cold and flu season, CPS would have shown up at your door and been like, excuse me, ma'am, this is child abuse. You can't have this kid wearing a mask for 8 hours a day. But suddenly, all of a sudden, even though every medical book you can find shows that for a respiratory virus of this particulate size isn't stopped by a mask, even more when the fires hit, which hit all over Nevada and California, they did all these announcements that said, the mask won't stop the smoke particulates, which are only like 500 times bigger than the coronavirus particulates. So at that point, you had me all in, and I just said, someone's got to do something for these kids and for our seniors and to get our state back 100%. And that's where I'm at, man. That's my story.
Yeah, I love it, man. Your response to all this stuff, it reminds me of like the whole purpose and the reason behind even having elected officials, right? It's changed to the point, since, before you and I were even alive, but it's changed to the point where being a politician has become a career. And that was never the intent, right? The intent was always for people like exactly where you're at. Like you just feel like this burning desire in your heart to stand up and do something for your city or your state or your county or whatever it might be for the individual, but you feel this tug, right? And so you're stepping up because you know that it's the right thing to do and it's your time, right? And that's the design of our system, right? Whether it's a city council person or state legislator or congressman or whatever the role is to get in because you feel like you can make a difference and then bow out. This isn't a forever thing, no. And that's why in my brain, I believe that the whole system is so messed up is because they've turned it into a career when it should have been, a couple of guys like you go do your thing for a chunk of time and then you bow out. Right. And give your impact. So yeah, I'm just, I'm super thrilled that you're doing this. I think the people of Nevada and the state of Nevada deserve you and, deserve someone that has, some wit about them. It's funny. You mentioned the particulate size and everything. I know people don't read, but you go to the store and you buy the boxes of those disposable face masks, right? It says right on there that it doesn't protect against an airborne virus. Yet we got people driving by themselves in a car wearing the mask. Like,
yeah, you know what I tell people on that? There's no saving those folks. You just gotta let them go. Those guys are CNN. They're, and I have a friend up here. Owns a auto body store. He says, Joey, do you know if I have my guys, they're out painting an auto in the bay. If they wear an N95 mask, they take that mask off. All inside their nose and mouth is paint. He says that thing does not work. And he goes, I don't care if it's only 5%. They don't work. And those are N95s. And so again, it's just hard to watch because, this entire, country got brainwashed for whatever reason. Like I said, I know there was politics involved. There never should be. 100% with you though on term limits. Listen, I'll hopefully, get this done. I feel like I will. I'll be in 4 or 8 years tops, but no one should serve this country for more than 8 years. We should have it capped at that, or if it's the Congress at 6 and 6, 12, that's it. And then you should have to take a mandatory 2-term break. If you wanted to go back or something 12 years later, good luck. But I'll just say this, man, I'm not interviewing to be in Congress. I'm not interviewing to be a senator. I'm trying to get this thing done, be one and done if I can, fix things and be out. But you know what? It's funny you say what you say though, because I feel like it's a calling of where we took an oath. We took an oath to defend this country against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And just because I got honorably discharged, when it was all said and done, I don't feel like I ever will stop serving. And I think that, we all have to do that. General Flynn, who's become a mentor of mine, he gave me his endorsement. He said, local involvement, national impact, and that we all have to step up. Like America needs you right now. It should be all hands on deck wherever you can, whether you're doing a podcast, whether you're talking to local folks, whether you're speaking to kids right now that are getting crushed because of the distance learning, but we can all do something. We have good moms and dads that should be running for school board. There should never be another county commission or city council or assembly or state senate seat that runs unopposed again, because what really happened is we just sat back and we didn't pay attention. Guys like you and me and other guys similarly situated, we're busy with our careers, we're busy with our business, our families, and we've just let guys run this that have no business running this. And so now Trump talks about it, but it's more so like America's woken up and wakening up to like, look, we got to see the underbelly of the school system with this distance learning, because parents walked by their kids' laptop and went like, what's that?
What are they teaching you? Yeah.
Good questions. And so now it's like, as General Flynn says, look, everybody needs to get involved. We will make a difference nationwide by everybody getting involved at the local level, however you can. And my encouragement is to any one of your listeners, wherever they are, get involved. I don't care who you are, what you do, you can make a difference. If nothing else, ask questions. Show up to these school boards and ask questions. Go to these county commissions, ask questions. Go to these city councils, ask questions. Go to the health board and push these guys. They are accountable to us. They've got this whole thing flipped. This is a government where they're serving at our pleasure. And so if they're not doing what they were supposed to do, if they're not watching out for we the people, they got to go. It's that simple. If they didn't support the people during this, they need to go. Don't give them another penny. Definitely don't vote for them again, but find good folks to run against them and get them out.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. And I think, supporters or not of Trump, I think one of the things that he did is he really kind of shook up the career politician's way of life, right? Because here came a guy running for the highest office in the land who didn't need the office for personal gain. And in a lot of our federally elected folks, they need it for personal gain, right? And you look at like the wealth, like a Nancy Pelosi, look at the wealth she's amassed. They make what, 180 grand a year, but she's worth millions and millions of dollars. Like, come on, like, yeah, it's so not honest. Like, how do people keep voting for frauds like that? But, he comes in, doesn't need this for personal gain. He's like, look, I'm going to shake it up. It shouldn't be the way it's being done. And it threatened their whole way of existence. And that's when you had this huge resistance against, if he blinked wrong, that was on the news. So I'm with you, man. I think getting some people in there with some intellect that know how to carry themselves. I think having experience running a business, right? Managing people, having to hire, having to go through firings or people leaving and, like having to make strategic decisions. Yeah. I mean, these are essential skill. I mean, when you go to run a state or a county or a nation, like you got to be able to be the chief executive, right? And if you have no experience doing any of that kind of stuff, it's a recipe for disaster.
Absolutely. One thing I'll say too is, it's like you hit the nail on the head with career politicians. In Nevada, much like California, we've been blue for a while. We might have had a Republican governor here and there. And so, I'm taking some heat on Twitter. I saw some people going after me because I donated to our now Attorney General when he was Senate Majority Leader. But it was because I had worked with him on making sure he didn't carry a sanctuary state bill because law enforcement didn't want it. Same thing with on the other side, this guy Tick Sinnerbloom, he was the godfather of marijuana, as they call it, and he was pushing all the marijuana reform on legislation because whether I'm Republican or not, and whether it hurts me with votes, I don't believe anybody should be sitting in jail or at least doing life for amount of cannabis that you can buy at some dispensary right now, for $100. And so we needed some marijuana, reforms on some of these laws. So
Yeah.
I gave money to some of these guys, but never in a million years did I think fast forward to 2020, 2021, that we'd be in a situation where these guys are actually voting for mandatory vaccines to go to the grocery store, vaccine mandatory to work, vaccine mandatory to fly, and then mask mandates in the city. There was just no way to predict that. And I think, like I keep telling people, we're here today because of these politicians, because they've been in there so long, they're just doing what they're told, what the special interests tell them to do. And so we can't have that anymore. And so again, like I said, I encourage everybody to get in, but we've got to have a system where, the people are represented by and from people themselves. And again, like I said, if I'm in for 8 years, that's it. Great. If it's 4, I'll be just as happy with that. I got a beautiful lake up here, Lake Tahoe, that calls my name. I got mountains to ski in. I got a side-by-side. I got dirt bikes, all the stuff we love to do. And, I'm going to serve the best of my ability. And then, like I said, one thing I do want to do, though, I'll say this, is no future governor, whether it's in California, Nevada, should ever have the power to, basically prolong, an emergency. We're about to come up on 2 years. And it's insane when you think about it, because the death rate in Northern Nevada dropped by 86% by May 2020. We're about to be February 2022. So one of the things I want to do as governor is make sure that any future governor, if he declares an emergency, he has 10 days, not 10 working days. So if he declares an emergency on a Wednesday, by that following Friday, there better be a bipartisan hearing at the legislature with doctors on both sides sitting down saying whether or not we're going to stay closed. And if not, we're open, because the people should never be shut out. These are our God-given constitutional rights, our civil liberties. Your kid in a mask, your business closed. Like, this is just so un-American. And then forced to take a vaccine. Like, we don't mandate anything in America. And so we just need to get back to that freedom of choice. You want to get it? God bless you. You want to wear a mask? You wear a mask. Stay 6 feet away. You know what? And I'll tell you something else. Like, I'll make sure at the grocery store, there can always be that one lane with the plexiglass up. And you can have the Karens. They can go in there. They can have their mask on, 2 masks, wear their gloves. But just remember, the stock boy that's touching all this stuff, it's the same guy, and it's going on the same belt, and it's going to the same checker out, and you're pressing on the same pin pad that's not wiped down. So everybody needs to take a deep breath, and we're going to go back to normal life. And the people that want to be, concerned about stuff, because your personal health care, your personal health is not my responsibility. Because if that was the truth, if I saw you eating an In-N-Out burger, if I saw you drinking a beer, I could walk out and smack it out of your hand. These people, they feel entitled. Like, where's your mask? I want to say, you better check your diet, son. Like, you're asking me like where my mask is. Have you taken a look at yourself lately? Like, you better put that burger down, that beer down, those fries, and worry a lot less about me healthy, wearing no mask with a great immune system. And you're like, I don't know. Anyway, I'm not going to get too excited about that, but from personal responsibility and accountability needs to come back in America. And we the people need to hold our elected representatives accountable or get them out of there.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree with you more on all of those points. And if you look at, like, the last 2 years and where we're seeing, the successes and failures of states, obviously Florida and Texas, they're doing great. And the leadership in those states they're doing a good job in leading those states. And kind of interesting personal story. We were up in Reno for the holidays this year, visiting family, and we ended up getting COVID. And so much like you, I'd seen, different therapies and stuff, and we're not gonna get the vaccination. I don't believe in it. I feel like it's like that used car salesman that wants you to buy the car you have no interest in buying, and he keeps forcing you to buy the car you don't like, right? I feel like that's the whole vaccine like mantra, forcing you to have something that you're not interested in. But anyways, we ended up getting sick, and so first thing I did was pull up like, these protocols, and it's like, a bunch of vitamins, right? Different vitamins and things. So of course we hit up all the vitamins, and then there's either ivermectin or hydrochloroquine, right? As an option. And so, as we were doing some talking and stuff, of course we couldn't get those things in Nevada. Even if I could get a prescription for it, the pharmacies were out of stock on those two particular things. So we ended up connecting with a doctor firm in Texas and doing the telehealth thing. And we went over it and like, okay, here's what you need. Here's the script. We'll overnight it to you. Boom. And there you go. And we're fine, healthy, everything's good, and these aren't drugs that had to be created yesterday. Hydrochloroquine has been around for, I don't know, 40 years or more, right?
Derived off label 40 years. Chloroquine, and then its sister hydroxychloroquine has been around almost 70 years. Ivermectin won the Nobel Peace Prize in 2015 for its use in humans, not horses. But it just is, it's like kind of painful. And the one thing, it's funny you say on the vaccine thing. So we're in the military. So people now, they try to say to me, we were in the military. They try to say you're an anti-vaxxer. I'm like, you obviously don't know how the military works. I had to have every vaccine on the planet. I've never been anti-vaccine. You didn't get to question them. Matter of fact, you're just told shut up. You stood there. You got them all in one day. No one cared. And so, I laugh about that. I mean, a few years ago, I stepped on a nail. They gave me a tetanus booster. All right. Like, no, we're not actually anti-vaccine, but if you've already had it, and if you can look any common sense, you can see it doesn't work. It doesn't prevent the infection or transmission. I'm gonna trust my immune system and my brain to jump on the computer and figure out what's out there. So again, I just want to see our country go back to allowing people to make their decisions from themselves. This includes whether or not you want your kid in a mask or whether you want them learning this stuff or not. And it shouldn't be forced. Like, this is America. We don't force anybody to do anything. If you want a treatment, you should have access to it. And so, that's going to be my fight. And again, I look forward to, at least if nothing else, making these other candidates and our current governor have to face some pretty tough headwinds, because I brought some attention to this race in terms of like holding guys accountable and calling them out, because I'm not a politician. I'm not the least, like I said, I could care less. I'm not going to mince my words. I'm not going to pull my punches, and we'll let the chips fall where they may. But I'm calling these guys out for exactly what they've done and haven't done. And we'll see, man. Like I said, the people can make their decision. I'm a supporter of our president, but there's a lot of stuff he said some days I was just like, dude, like, really, there's things he do or say.
Yeah.
But overall, I support, like I said, I'm not trying to be president. I'm trying to be a governor. Look at Kristi Noem in South Dakota. Look at Ron DeSantis. We should have choice. You never should have shut anybody's business. You definitely shouldn't have sent their kids home and shut their sports down. And you shouldn't be testing our healthy children with something that can't distinguish between, influenza A through C or COVID. And again, you can test positive for up to 12 weeks. So the whole thing's broken and flawed. And again, it's because, I'll say this one last time, you have politicians running it. Our government has never done anything well. And go back to the founding fathers. They're supposed to defend us. They're supposed to make sure that the elections happen on time, but they're not even supposed to be involved in local elections. Outside of that, and taking care of stuff in the world view, they're supposed to stay out of our lives. And so that's what we need to have happen. And that's what I'm going to push for.
I love it, man. I love it. Yeah. And I think, as they keep pushing the masks on the kids or making them stay home, there's that side impact, which is the parents, right? Like, now parents, and in most households, both parents work, right? In a lot of households in America, both parents work. So when you send a child home, a school-age child who needs to be sitting in front of a computer to do school, well, we all know this because we have kids. You can't just leave a kid in front of their iPad and walk away, because they're scrolling on to something else as soon as they can, right? They're kids. They're kids, right? So, and then the other thing is, that mom or dad is now not at work. And so now you have an income discrepancy in the household, which creates all sorts of other problems, right? I mean, they wouldn't be a dual income household if they didn't need it, right? Most likely. I mean, so it's not well thought out. And now it's like, oh, well, there was an outbreak in class, so we're sending everybody home for 2 weeks. Oh, well, I guess you're out of vacation, you're out of sick time at your work. So what next? You know what I mean? Like there's just no plan. There's no thinking behind this.
No, and that's why I truly believe with all my heart, this was not by mistake. Again, whether it was just to have a means to an end, they want to Trump out. People can feel however they want to feel, but you don't have the 6 swing states on the night of the presidential election being shut down for the first time in our country's history, where they're counting mail-in ballots that are still arriving and then happen to arrive for the next 3 weeks. I'm never going to buy that. People that try to say there's no voter issues or voter integrity issues. I got some oceanfront property to sell you in Arizona. I don't need proof. It's very simple. Like my daughter, she's 11. She was 10 at the time. She says, Dad, we went to bed and President Trump was winning by a lot. And then I wake up and slowly but surely, like he just gets inched out. And there's these huge drops of 150,000 ballots at 2 a.m. It just doesn't pass the lab test. And so again, we need to move past that, but we do need to come together as a country and realize that like what's been done this last almost 2 years is not right. We should never go through this again, and people should stand up for each other. We need communities to stand together. Like again, if you were a flu shot person, I never used to ask anybody in my office or friends like, did you get your flu shot? I didn't care. It's the same thing, and you could die as the flu just like you die from anything else. And so I just think people need to be more compassionate, more love to each other, and just realize that everyone, has the right to make their own decisions, what's best for themselves. You shouldn't be forcing, criticizing, looking down upon someone. Like this is America. Like, let people do what they need to do. And, again, if your mask works so well, then you should be good. And if your vaccine works, it's the first time, like Dr. Ryan Cole says, where we're blaming, the medicine on someone, because someone else didn't take it. So it's like my vaccine's not working because you didn't take it. Well, if I take a Tylenol right now and your headache doesn't go away, I hate to tell you this, but that's not how it works, basically. So again, I just want to get back to where we stick together for each other. Americans, and you remember when we were in college, I mean, God, man, I'll never forget back in the day, like it didn't matter who was in office, or for example, we're out of college now, but we're working here and Obama's president. My friends would walk in with their big, it'd say hope on his shirt. And I said, man, you need to put a D in front of that. But we're in the front, we'd slap high fives and hug. And it was no like beat someone up because they had a MAGA hat on or whatever. Right. Like what happened to that? Like we used to be able to get along. And that's like I said, it's such a crazy turn because like I just told people, I was under some heat because I gave money to guys on the other side. But when you're in a blue state, you got to work with people. And it never was so bad to where it's my way or the highway for them. Like it's either they're going to do it like this. It was always about what was best for the people. So we just got to get back to that. I think we can. And I think that this next election is going to be a huge wake up call because like the independents, they're going to be calling the shots on this one. Independents, nonpartisans, true libertarians. And then there's about, I'd say 20-30% of Democrats that haven't lost their minds completely. And I think if those guys back, the whole freedom of choice, like, responsible for yourself, accountability side of things, there's going to be a huge wave to restore things. And then, like I said, please encourage anybody you talk to on any podcast moving forward. General Flynn says local involvement, national impact, get involved locally, and let's fix things.
Yeah, man, I completely agree. And, I mean, you totally got my endorsement, even though I moved out of the state. So anything I can do to help support you, I will. And, and I wanted to, we didn't touch a lot on like, the boxing and stuff, but one thing that it comes to mind for me with that, right, is, being a collegiate athlete and then doing it professionally is the push, right? I mean, you're literally just pushed to your absolute mental and physical limits. And it wasn't like it was for a day, right? Like it was years of that, right? And I think that truly is a testament to you and the success that you've had in your personal and business life because, it's stretched your capacity, right? So, for those that haven't been pushed to the limit physically or mentally, their capacity is less. And I think, for someone like yourself who have been pushed to that high limit, your ability to handle things and cope with things and deal with things with sound mind and sound thought process far exceeds another person who has just never had to be pushed as hard, right? You've been conditioned, just like getting ready for a fight, right? You don't just show up because yesterday you decided to be a boxer, right? Like there's a lot that goes into showing up for that first fight. And I think that plays into life in general too, right? Is having that preparation, that mental mindset on top of the physical push, right? Yeah. So, well, Joey, thanks, man. I appreciate you sharing your story here with us today on the Armed and Ready podcast. We're going to get this out, all the podcast platforms, plus it'll be out on YouTube and social. We'll make sure to stay connected with you on it. And anytime, man, you want to use this as a platform to get your message out or anything, the door is always open. So just, let me know, and we'll have you on, and we'd love to have you back and just continue the conversation.
Hey man, I love it. Like talking about this is very important, and making sure that we keep just the public engaged and listeners engaged on what they can do. Because everyone always says to me, what can I do? Like but we could do a lot. And like we kind of talked about a few times here, I do think that I was predispositioned for this because, when you have to fight in a 12-round fight and you got a cracked rib and a busted nose and you're swallowing your own blood, you fight through it. So that's why this stuff right now for me, I mean, they could say whatever they want to say. They could put out all the press. To me, it's a joke. I mean, truly, not to be mean or anything, but it's a joke. Like, I mean, this stuff for me, it's about our children. It's about making sure that folks have access to medications they want. And so again, I love the opportunity to come back. And another thing too, is I'm in San Diego once in a while. I'd love to see you, get together.
Let's do it,
man. That'd be really cool. But again, thanks for having me on, and definitely keep you updated, because look, one thing we've learned, last thing I'll say is that, we need Californians and anybody to take an interest. Like if it wasn't for the red states during this pandemic, if it wasn't for the Floridas and the Texases and the South Dakotas that opened up and were allowed their people to do stuff, we would be in such a different place. So whether you're in Southern California or not, you want Nevada to have a red governor. You want a big, bright, beautiful, like Florida of the West, because you're going to come to our casinos in Vegas. You're going to come up to Lake Tahoe, and you don't want to deal with coming up here again to Mass or trying to go to Vegas and stuff's closed down. And so all I say to this is take notice and take an interest in any of these races, nationally now, because without these states going red, we'd be in a big problem. And I'll just say this, as a Nevada governor, I will be reaching across the aisle, and saying to Newsom, hey, dude, like we need to thin out these forests. Like enough's enough. You can't, the whole spotted owl thing, well, the thing can't even land anymore in the forest because it's so cluttered up. So let's fix some stuff. Let's save water together. Let's make sure our farmers and ag partners get the water they need. Let's make sure we have the clean air. Let's not just talk about it and make it a talking point and something you're raising money off of. Let's put our money where our mouth is. So my issue to, my message is to Californians is, listen, we've learned a very valuable lesson here. It was never more important who your governor, even mayor, was until this year, or until 2020. And so take an interest if you can, and you can contribute. Please go on Gilbert for Governor and, get involved. If you can volunteer, if you can, send a financial contribution, you do it. And if you live in Nevada or have loved ones or relatives in Nevada, send them, my website, Gilbert for Governor, and say, get behind this guy. I'd love their support, and I'd love anybody's support who's watching, because I think, like I said, we turn every state we can red to make sure that we have our freedoms and our freedom of choice.
I agree with you, man. Amen, brother. Well, best of luck in the race this year. If you are in San Diego, let's get you in here in the studio, and we'll get together live and do it again, man. It'd be great to see you. But thanks so much. I know you got a lot on your plate, so I appreciate your time today, brother. And we'll talk soon. Thank you so much.
All right, man. God bless. Thank you.
See ya.
See ya.
Thanks so much for checking out this week's episode. Please subscribe, click the link below, share with your friends. And hey, if you know a military person or a veteran with a great story to share, we would love to highlight them on the podcast and get their story out to everybody. Thanks so much.